Welcome to episode 149 of the Daniel Yoris podcast. With today's guest, me. Let's go. Oftentimes, the best way to get the podcast started is just to hit record and let it rip. So here we go. Episode 149, just me today. Q&A, we'll do a little bit of a year wrap-up / look ahead into the new year and talk about some New Year's goals for myself and New Year's goal setting in general. And that's pretty much it, and we'll try and stay on topic. I'll get to as many of the questions as I can. There's some solid ones here, and that's that. If my voice sounds a little run down today, I'm recording this on December 22nd. This past week and a half has been crazy with just trying to wrap up things for the year, getting a couple new clients started, getting programs out to everyone who needs stuff for January. So there's been, I think today I wrote 8 programs, yesterday 4 programs. It's just been a wild, but and a lot of talking on the phone, a few podcasts recorded this week. This week has just been chaos. And so if my voice sounds a little bit run down, that's why. But I actually did want to talk about that a little bit, and not necessarily just my voice, but just in the busyness of things. And as we get into this year wrap up, I know that I say this very often, but I very much appreciate each and every one of you who listens. It means a lot to me. There's a lot of behind the scenes work that goes into recording these episodes and putting these episodes and continuing to do this. We're approaching 3 years now on this one episode a week. And as a solo operation here, it's sometimes it's a lot. Sometimes it doesn't feel like all that much, but when I actually look at the amount of time and stuff that gets put into it, it is a lot. This year has been a very good growth year for the podcast in terms of you guys telling your friends about it, leaving reviews and comments and on all that stuff. And so if you haven't done that, please do so. It means a heck of a lot and helps way more than you think. But either way, I just want to say that I appreciate you. Thank you so much for being with me, whether you've started listening this year or from the very beginning or anything in between. I appreciate you an absolute ton. So thank you for that. Now, as far as my run-downness up to this point, the reason this is relevant is because we all kind of have these periods of time that will come up, whether they be right now at the end of the year, various busy times of the year for work for you, if your job has any sort of seasonality to it, or if you're just getting sick or whatever other things are happening in your life. And so I just want to kind of go through a few things that are keeping me going, keeping my energy up, and keeping me feeling good and feeling like I'm still getting the things done, even though there is some chaos and things are not quote unquote perfect. By not perfect, I mean I was scheduled for 4 workouts this week. I'm going to get 2 in plus some walks. That's okay. It happens. My sleep hasn't been great. I've been going to bed a little bit later than usual, waking up a little bit earlier than usual, so tightening that sleep window, and also been going to bed quite stressed, so my sleep hasn't been good stress, but not that there's anything bad happening, but just stress overall. Stress can be good or bad or otherwise. Going to bed a little bit stressed, my sleep quality hasn't been as good. And so these things are happening, and it's but I've still got things to do. I've still got podcasts to record. I've still got clients that need to be checked in with, clients that need programs, clients that need this, continuing to post on social media, continuing to upkeep the podcast, all of these things. And I'm not trying to say that I'm more busy than anyone else or anything like that at all. I don't have children. I don't have a lot of other things that a lot of people have. So this is not a who's the busiest competition. This is just the reality of my life this week. Some of the things that keep me going. One is trying to maintain some regularity of the sleep schedule. Now, this can obviously be tough, but if you can at least say okay, I'm gonna go to bed later, but I'll at least for this week go to bed the same time later as you can. If you usually go to bed at 10 and now you've got to push it to 11, then keep it at 11 every day. If you can keep your bedtime routine, even if it's a condensed version of it, that also really helps an absolute ton, and especially staying off screens right before bed, even if it's only 20 minutes. It's harder when you're busier, and especially for me right now, I'm on my phone, or usually my phone, answering messages or whatever up until very close to the time when I'm actually going to sleep, and that's not usually how I operate. But if you can avoid that as much as possible, then that will be excellent. I'm also probably going to have to stop and drink a little bit more during this episode than normal, so I apologize if I make noise doing that. Now, another couple of little things that are supplement-wise, little hacks and things that I use. So not to be very stereotypical podcaster. It's not an AG1 ad, I promise. I have been recently getting into the Element packs. It's like a salt electrolyte drink, and I've been using those a lot, and that is a thing that has helped me a lot. So staying hydrated is something that often will go out the window in times when you're pretty busy. Remembering to drink water, keeping up with drinking water, you're stressed, you might be sweating more, your body's running a little hot, all that kind of stuff. If you can be more hydrated, that's always going to help you. And if you can use something to help you with that hydration, like an electrolyte pack, like the Element packs, it's a good idea. I wouldn't rely on this. It doesn't replace just drinking regular water and all that stuff, as normal. And there's certainly a case to be made that this is just something that could be taken for most people most of the time. But in these types of things, you really notice that it helps you a little bit more. So staying hydrated when you're crazy busy, and if you need to use something, a product or supplement to help with that, that's one thing that will help as well. Another thing, shortening your workouts, but still keeping the workouts. I haven't really had time to get my full workouts in. I was scheduled for 4. I got 2 in this week. That's okay. And I got some extra walks in, and I use my weighted vest to make it a little bit more challenging, per se, more workout-like kind of thing. Get a little bit heart rate going up a little bit more of a sweat, all that kind of stuff. Not that replaces strength training by any means, but it's still good. Now, the other workouts that I did, they weren't even the full workouts that I had scheduled, but they were shortened versions of that same workout. So you get the most important stuff done, and you kind of skip off the back. And that's, again, none of these things should be your plan for most of the time. But in these times of busy seasons, it's very useful. Now, that is a useful strategy, and it seems so simple to say that, but a lot of people will skip their entire workout if they can't get the whole thing in. Excuse me. So if you usually have your workout that takes an hour, or you don't have an hour today, you only have half an hour, 45 minutes. It's okay to skip parts of your workout at the end. Don't skip your main work. Like if you have squats and then a bunch of other stuff, don't skip your squats. Like get your squats in and then see what else you can cut off the end. But just getting some of it in is still going to help you stay on track. Another little thing that's helped me on the things that kind of work better than they should, and I always hesitate to talk about supplements and these things too much because I know that a lot of people misconstrue what it means and that it's a panacea for certain other things, for taking care of the basics, and they're not, but they definitely do help. Anyone who says supplements don't work it's incorrect. So a couple of other things that I've taken to help me keep going. One has been nootropics, and these are something that I've talked about very often on the podcast. We have a couple episodes with the Wukio team and other people part of that team. The Apex product, it's like their nootropic thing. Nootropic essentially means a supplement that helps boost your brain. All natural, all that stuff. It's not prescription or anything like that. But that's helped me keep going. So now that doesn't work when you're not sleeping, not taking care of yourself, not whatever, and you can just take this and boom, feel amazing. It works when you're just maybe a little bit run down and you can get yourself back up or get yourself up a little bit higher. And it works even better when everything is dialed and then you can take it and then you're above what you're usually at. So using those and utilizing just caffeine timing, it's obviously no secret that I drink coffee and drink a fair bit of it. But intelligently timing that. So I'm not timing it when it's close to bedtime, and I'm trying to time it in accordance with things that I have to be doing. Like I would have had a coffee maybe 30 minutes before sitting down to record this podcast so that I know that it's kind of hitting me and peaking when I'm in the podcast, when I want my brain to be firing and everything going, versus having had that coffee maybe 2 hours before recording this when it's starting to wean off, and then I feel like I need to have another one, and then I'm giving too much caffeine to myself. So, which is obviously not a good thing, but intelligently timing your caffeine intake, as well as if you're into the nootropics, the Wukio Apex one is really good, and I think I might even actually have a discount code on that one. I'm not really sure, but message me and I'll send you the information. I'll find it. So that's one. The other supplements, and these are just more general health things. They're not necessarily performance boosters in any capacity, but just general health, is omega-3, magnesium, zinc. Keep taking those, and vitamin D, especially vitamin D. It's wintertime now, especially vitamin D. If you stay on top of those things, it's just you're not going to notice anything, but you won't notice yourself getting as run down as quickly. So those are just a few things. None of those should be earth-shattering. All things that I've spoken about many, many times before, but helpful to know and helpful to reiterate as we get into busy times. And you can use those and apply those as you see fit in your own life. So, get into a couple of questions here. First question: is there a correct rate at which to add weight to your reps, to your exercises? This is a really good question and deserves some nuance. So the answer, as always, is it depends. There's not a hard and fast rule of you must increase by this amount of weight every week, or you must not exceed this rate of improvement, this rate of increase of weight every single week or something like that. There's no hard and fast rule, and it will kind of change per exercise. For example, you might be able to add 10 pounds to your squat, right? You're squatting, barbell back squatting, you add a 5 pound plate on each side. Great. So it's an increase of 10 pounds overall, which is that would be like a pretty normal rate of increase for an exercise like a squat. However, you're not going to add 10 pounds to your dumbbell lateral raises when you're only lateral raising 15 pounds. You're not just going to go from 15 to 25. A thing that you need to pay attention to with these things is, you don't need to be a mathematician to figure this out, but just close enough. I'm certainly not. Is the percentage increase of the weights. So when you're doing an exercise with 10 pounds and you increase from 10 pounds to 15 pounds, that is a 50% increase, right? It's only 5 pounds, but it's 50%. Versus if you're at 100 pounds on a barbell back squat and you go from 100 to 105, well, it's still only 5 pounds, but it's a 5% instead of a 50% increase. So the relativity matters as well. So understand that a little bit. In like smaller exercises that are weaker exercises, you're obviously going to increase them by smaller amounts and or increase the weight slower. You might increase reps more frequently and higher than you would increase weight. So the way to think of it is this. Some people call this the double progression method or double progression model. I'm going to have a hard time with words today. You can already tell. And it's as follows. It's a very, very simple method of progressive overload, and probably the way that more or less everyone should go, unless you're getting into something more complicated. But it's as follows. Say your reps are 10 to 12. Your coach's prescribed reps, 10 to 12. Great. Week 1, and I'm using simple numbers here just to make it easy. Week 1, you do that exercise. You use 100 pounds and you do it for 10 reps. Great. Week 2, we have that rep range there, right? Week 2, you still use 100 pounds. You try and hit the upper end of that rep range. So you go week 2 is 100 pounds for 12 reps. Now, 12 reps was pretty good. You felt pretty strong. Week 3 comes around. Now we want to go back down to the bottom of that rep range, increase the weight. So go week 3, 105 pounds or 110 pounds for 10 reps again. Week 4, 110 pounds for 12 reps. Week 5, 115 pounds for 10 reps. So each week you're increasing either reps or weight, kind of the opposite of whichever you increased last week. Use that same weight until you can hit the top of the rep range, then go back down to the bottom of the rep range after you increase the weight. That is a pretty standard way to do it. It works very well for most exercises. And again, it won't always be that linear. Every single week, you won't be able to add a rep or add a pound, but for the most part, that's what you should be aiming for. Of course, some exercises, if it's like a dumbbell exercise, you can't really increase by only 1 pound, right? And so going from the 15s to the 20s, if your gym doesn't have a 17.5 pound dumbbell, going from the 15s to the 20s might be too hard, even if you've hit the top of that rep range. Like you might be able to get 12 reps at 15 pounds, but you might not be able to get 10 reps at 20. If you go to 20, you might only be able to get like 4 or 5. Now, depending on what your programming looks like and what you're aiming for, it's probably not a good idea. And then you can just increase that rep range. So you might add a set at 15. You might add reps, maybe go up to 15 reps instead of stopping at 12 reps. You might add an eccentric in there to kind of bridge the gap. There's a few programming options in there. But the main thing is that there's not a hard and fast rule as to what the rate is that you need to be increasing your weight. You should be trying to increase the intensity or the difficulty of your workout overall each week. And if that means increasing weight or increasing reps or both, then do that. But typically, and I'll give this as a somewhat blanket recommendation, when you go to increase the weight, increase it by the smallest increment possible. So if your dumbbells go up in intervals of 2.5 or 5, then increase it by that smallest interval. If you can add 5 pounds to the bar, add 5 pounds to the bar if that's the smallest increment. If the weight stack on the cable machine or whatever goes up in increments of 5 pounds, typically most machines will have like a 5 pound interval, then go up by 5 pounds at a time. And you'll know yourself, and this comes with just training experience, when you can actually push that a little bit farther. Like, okay, like I'm pretty strong at this, like an additional 5 pounds is not going to increase it. I can jump up by 10, or I can jump up by 20, or whatever it is. So that is the part that comes with training experience, but don't be shy to push yourself. So long as you're able to do the exercise safely and efficiently and effectively, then there's no limit. You don't have to go up by only 1 pound or 2.5 pounds at a time. Another question. This one would probably be better if it was like me talking around in the gym YouTube video, but the question was about how to brace your abs. Now, this is something that many trainers, all trainers will say, like, okay, we're going to do squats. All right, get the bar on your back, brace your abs, and then squat down. And people are like, how do I brace my abs? Everyone says this, but we don't really ever talk about like how to actually do it. Now, bracing your abs is, there's a couple ways that people say how to do this. One, it can feel like brace your abs like you're about to get punched in the stomach, right? Imagine someone's about to punch you in the stomach. What would you do? And then that natural reaction. This can work sometimes, but also if you've never really braced your abs, you might just push out your stomach. So if you kind of like suck air into your belly and you push your belly out, that will feel like it makes your belly harder, let's say. That will feel like you're kind of bracing your abs, but that's not really using your actual abdomen. That's just your abdominal muscles, rather. You're filling your stomach or your diaphragm and pushing your stomach out. So it can help, but not exactly. A better way to think of it is this, and this does take some practice. There are a couple of exercises that really help with this, and they're a reason that I use them a lot with many clients, especially like in their first phase of programming, or especially if they're new to training in general, and it teaches you, it's not that the exercise is difficult, it's just that it really teaches you how to brace your abs and feel your abs. And once you get that down, then you can translate that into every single exercise ever. So it's the McGill curl up or a stability ball crunch. And if you have questions about those, like it's hard for me, I can't demonstrate them for you right now on this podcast, but send me a message and I'll help you out with those. But essentially, the McGill curl up is you're lying on your back, you have one leg bent, your hands go under your back. You're going to push your belly button down into your spine without sucking in your belly. You're trying to drive your belly button down into your spine. And then imagine there's like a rope from the bottom of your ribs to the top of your hips. And then you have your hand on the top of that rope at your ribs, and you're pulling that rope down, bringing your ribs close to your hips. That is what if you can get that right, it will feel easy if you're doing it wrong. And if you're doing it right, then you'll feel a deep contraction in your abs. So that's that. And then the stability ball crunch is the same thing. You're going to sit on a stability ball. The ball is kind of like on your lower back, lower to mid back. Tuck your chin so you don't hurt your neck. You're going to extend up, lengthening that rope between the bottom of your ribs and top of your hips. Lengthen that rope as much as you can, and then yank on that rope, bring your ribs down close to your hips, and that deep contraction with keeping your belly button pushing down into the ball, that feeling is how to contract your abs. Now, all of that said, to do this standing or sitting, you can still brace your abs, right? You don't have to be in those positions. It's really easy to feel it and understand what it's like in those positions, then you can translate that over. But if you're just standing, a way to do it is this. If you put your hand on your belly button, you can think of this. Bring your belly button, push it into your spine without sucking in your belly. Then bring your belly button up. Sorry, let me restart that. What you're going to do is this. Put your hand on your belly button. You're going to bring your belly button up, suck it in towards your spine, right? Compress your midsection, and then push your belly button down. Now, your stomach should be more flat here, not protruding out, like pushing out. If you're pushing out, then you're just putting air in there. You're not actually squeezing the muscles. It should be like really tight and compact. If you can get that feeling and you can feel your abs contracting there, that is what bracing your core looks like. Because what you're trying to do, if you're watching the video, is basically squeeze everything in around the middle of your body, like your midsection, and That's what bracing your core is. So maybe I should do a video on this one where I'm kind of like, showing it. But if you can imagine those things that I said and think about those exercises and using those exercises, the McGill curl up and the stability ball crunch, that's how you brace your abs. Let me get another sip here. This is not proving to go very well right now. Next question. This is just a question around fasting and whether someone should do extended day fast, 3-day fast, intermittent fasting, and generally what I think about it. It was like a long worded, conversation kind of thing. So a couple things. One, there's fasting has been, I haven't been around in the fitness industry for that long, relatively speaking, like coming up on 9 years now, and which can feel like a long time, but there are people who have been, in their 40s and 50s, even their 60s, who have been obviously doing this for way longer than me, just because they've been alive for longer, and they've seen, and they talk about seeing trends, recycle themselves and rename themselves. And I hear them say this and like, yeah, sure. I believe that happens, of course, but fasting is kind of the first one that I'm seeing make a comeback. Like I remember when I kind of really started getting into this stuff, like more than 10 years ago, fasting was a thing. A lot of people were talking about intermittent fasting. It was really popular. It was like this new, whatever. And I didn't know nearly as much as I know now and how to decipher information and all this kind of stuff. And of course I tried it. I've tried lots and lots of things, and lots of them were dumb and stupid, and some of them were useful. Everything has its place for the most part, but anyways, fasting is among those things, not completely stupid. The reason that I'm saying that is because I've seen fasting kind of come back now. It was hot for a minute, then it kind of, people forgot about it, and now it's hot again. And I think it's because there's a certain select group of people who are talking about it, and then that somehow gets its way into like the celebrity space where there's a couple of high profile, not fitness people, but just, actors and, singers and public figures, let's say, who swear by it and, oh, I used this and I lost so much weight and I did this and I did that. And it's like, okay. So anyways, we're seeing it come full circle again. I think that's why it's getting hot again. So this is why I wanted to address this. Fasting is a tool. It's not magic. A few episodes ago, I did an episode about how to decipher information, fitness information online. Always ask yourself this. If it was this easy, if the solution was just this, don't you think everybody would just do that? There's a reason why everybody doesn't do intermittent fasting or doesn't do 3 or 4 or 5 or 7-day fasts. And it's because it doesn't work universally for everyone. That's the end of it. Now, some of the good things from fasting is this. Intermittent fasting is a really good way to teach yourself to not be so responsive to your hunger cues. Now, that can also be a slippery slope. You don't want to just completely ignore it and be starving all the time. But the point of it is that, especially when you're trying to lose weight, you're going to be a little bit hungry. And that's just an unfortunate part of it. It's what you're doing. If you always feel the need to give in every time you feel a little hunger pang, I feel like I need a little something, and you're snacking, you're taking some bites here and there, that is one of the absolute biggest things holding most people back from losing weight is just the snacking. If we simply rid ourselves of that, we would reduce calories by so much that we'd end up losing weight without really changing anything else with the diet or exercise. So if you can get control of that voice in your head to, I just got to grab something a little bit now. I just gotta satisfy this and I'm gonna be good. It's tough to do, but intermittent fasting and putting those strict rules on that for you can really be beneficial. Just as well, if people struggle with nighttime snacking, when you put the intermittent fasting rules in where it's like, hey, I'm only gonna eat from noon to 8 o'clock or 1 p.m. till 9 p.m. or whatever things that people use. If you are going to adhere to that rule and not snack at nighttime, because most people are not snacking on anything healthy at nighttime, but if you actually adhere to that rule and don't snack at night, it's not that snacking at night is wrong, it's just that when you're snacking at night, you're eating garbage and way too much of it, you're going to end up losing weight. So intermittent fasting is not some magic weight loss tool. It's just a strict set of rules that for some people really works by applying those rules to them the same way that someone might lose weight being vegan. Someone might lose weight being, I almost yanked the mic out of the computer. Someone might lose weight being keto or being carnivore or following any other diet because it's just placing a set of rules around it, which is forcing you or getting you to eat a little bit less food and control your calories a little bit better. So that's the thing with intermittent fasting. I don't think it's the best tool for most people for most of the time. I think it's a good thing to use for some people. This is like, the most non-answer ever, but I think it's like some people should use it for a period of time just to learn, just to get the experience of it. Some people, it really, really works well with their lifestyle, their work schedule, their personal preferences around eating, their social normities around eating, and these kind of things. Some people, it's really bad for. It just doesn't work with them. For me personally, I'm hungry in the morning. I like to eat right when I wake up. I'll get going early in the morning. I'll feel low energy if I'm not eating. Some people say like, hey, if I don't eat in the morning, then I actually feel like way better energy going into the day. To those people, I would say, well, what were you typically eating in the morning? If you're having a shitty breakfast, of course your energy is going to suck later on. But if you're having a good breakfast, which I am, then you're going to have good energy going into the day. So there's always like caveats to these things. So never take anything just at face value that, oh, so-and-so said it's good, so therefore it must be amazing. Like, there's probably more to it. Otherwise, everybody would just do it. Now, the longer fasts, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 days. For mental toughness, cool. I think there's a lot of other ways to do it, but yeah, definitely checks that box. That would be a hard thing to do. As far as the claims about clearing out your dead cells and all this autophagy and all this, cancer prevention and all these things, it's just complete rubbish. It's just not true. If it was true, nobody would tell you other than big pharma, but there are like just regular fitness influencers, regular trainers, regular people like me who are like, hey, this is just not true. And it's not my opinion. This is just science. So we don't get to really argue with this. You can make things up, but what does it mean kills all the dead cells in your body? Can the people who are promoting that explain that and prove it scientifically? They can't, because it's not true. So if you want to do it for the purpose of mental toughness, great. The funniest thing about seeing people talk about this in the past couple of weeks is they say oh, I didn't do this for weight loss. I did this because of the cancer prevention and the blah, 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 all these other fake science things. Yet when they're showing how they promoted, or they're promoting that they did it, they're showing these before and after pictures of their belly shrinking and the weight on the, they're they weighed 200 pounds and then they weighed 190 pounds or whatever 3 days later or something like that. And it's okay, but you're telling me that you didn't use this for weight loss, yet you're promoting it by showing your belly shrinking and by showing your scale, your weight dropping. I'm missing the part where you claim to not have done this for the purported benefit of weight loss. And obviously you're going to lose weight in a very short term if you don't eat for 3 days. Of course you will. It will be impossible not to. Is that sustainable? What's the diet after the diet, right? These are all questions that are worth asking that we don't see. Are you just going to have to, the thing that's actually, I think, bad about this and dangerous about it for most people is that it will create this cycle of, I do a 3-day fast, I lose 10 pounds, 12 pounds, 15 pounds, 20 pounds, whatever it is. I lose all this weight. And then you go back to your regular habits, because you can't just you can't just fast for forever. Then you go back to your regular habits. Over the next couple of weeks or months, you gain all that weight right back, because obviously if you just go back to doing what you were doing before, of course you're going to gain that weight back. And then because you didn't actually learn anything, didn't actually build any habits, didn't actually build any skills, what's the next thought that comes in your head? Oh, well, last time I hit, the scale hit over 200 pounds. I did that 3-day fast and I got down to 190. I got down to 185. I looked great. I felt amazing. And then you're just going to do it again. And then you just perpetuate this cycle of gaining and losing the same 10 to 15 pounds by doing these 3-day fasts, not having actually learned anything and not having actually improved anything either. So that's the thing where you need to have a deep understanding of the nuance of what's going on and why you're actually doing it. Are you doing it because you're trying to kickstart something, and then you're going to, you want to test your mental toughness and test your fortitude and really, get off to a good start, and then you're going to follow a diet and exercise routine and all this stuff? If that's the case, then fine, do your thing. I don't want to. It can obviously be dangerous, but it's not that dangerous. You can do a 3-day fast and you're going to be fine. It's also hilarious that most of these 3-day fasts are actually not fasts, because they are in fact eating and drinking, which is funny. But anyways, they are intaking calories, albeit very, very low. So if you don't actually know what you're doing and why you're doing it, you run the risk of making or creating a cycle where you will always have to revert back to doing that thing, because that's the only thing, quote unquote, only thing that's worked for you up to that point. So if you're going to do it, be very aware, do it with your eyes wide open, and really give yourself, really look yourself hard in the mirror and ask yourself why you're doing it and what you think that you're going to get out of it, and what are you going to do after the fast is over. Last question, then I'm just going to talk about some New Year goal setting stuff. I actually briefly mentioned this before, but it was a question about whether running and walking with the weight vest is worth it. I bought a weight vest, I want to say 6 months ago, something like that. And I've been using it. I use it every week for walks. I haven't run with it. It's because it's for a few reasons. I haven't been doing a ton of running in general. My knees, my injuries are so bad. And my propensity to get injured is so bad. Just in general. Running with the vest is putting, obviously, you're wearing more weight, right? You're heavier. When you run, there's more impact. Running already has a lot of impact. And if you have one slightly wrong step with a little bit more weight, and the weight vest is it's secure, it's on you, but it still moves. It's not actually part of your body. So the weight is shifting, which means your center of mass is shifting ever so slightly all the time. And with someone who has an injury history like me in their knees and ankles, it just seems like not a very smart idea to be running, especially if it's running outside with the weight vest. So I haven't been running with it. I have been walking an absolute ton with it, both outside and on the treadmill. I like it. I don't think it's absolutely necessary for anyone. I think it's a great tool. I think it's a really good way to kind of, as your level of fitness increases and your zone 2 level can kind of be, you can still maintain your zone 2 cardio, but at a little bit of a higher heart rate. A way to get that heart rate up a little bit higher and still stay in zone 2 without starting to run is using the weight vest, because it's just making it slightly more difficult, right? There's a marginally higher calorie burn, which is negligible effectively, as it is always with cardio. Cardio, yes, it burns calories, but so does everything else. So that's not the purpose of cardio. The purpose of cardio is training your heart. But it allows you to stay in zone 2 at higher heart rates as your fitness improves, without having to run or walk significantly faster or whatever. So for that, I think it's been a great tool. There's definitely some benefit to just carrying more weight on your bone density and the effects that will have. I haven't really done the experiment where you just wear it around during the day, just because I would find that so uncomfortable. I am interested to do it, and I may do it at some point in the new year. I'd have to do it for a decent, at least a month though, to really get a good beat on whether it's doing anything. But that's interesting. Just that there's a potential for I think the word used in the study was a gravitostat, which is your body's kind of set point weight. And so if you can rapidly increase your body's set point by 20 or 30 or 40 pounds by wearing a weighted vest, then your body's going to want to ramp up metabolism to lose weight again, because your body can't necessarily tell that it's body fat or a weight vest. It just knows that it's carrying around a bunch more weight. So it might ramp up metabolism in order to shed more weight. Whether that's true or not, TBD. The study was inconclusive and all that stuff. It was just a thing that they proposed. It could have also just been the slight increase in calories from carrying around a weighted vest, and this seems way more reasonable and logical, but the slight increased calories in wearing a weighted vest for extended periods of time, I think it was 8 hours a day, contributed to weight loss over like the 8 weeks or 4 weeks or whatever it was that the study was done. So interesting. I think it's a good tool to have, good tool to have in the toolbox. Certainly not necessary, but just a nice thing to have and to use. Now, let's talk about some New Year's goal setting. So very exciting news that happened actually just a couple of hours before this was, if you follow me on Instagram, you know that I got engaged recently, and we finally locked down a date for the wedding. It will be January 25th, 2025, which gives me 13 months, almost exactly, to get ready for the wedding, whatever that means. I mean, I'm ready today. We could just do it. But obviously, I want to get in my best shape ever for that. And I want to kind of bring you along with me. So last year, I set a goal, and I believe the wording that I used was something to the effect of, I want to get so jacked and shredded that I start to get accused of being on steroids. Now, that was like very ambitious because I'm not nearly big enough. I weigh like 160 pounds. So like to be getting accused, that would be quite ridiculous. But the sentiment was there. However, I got injured a lot last year. I hurt my back. I hurt my shoulder snowboarding in January. So I had like, I was off to a great start at the beginning of last year, like first 2-3 weeks out of the gates running, going great. Hurt my shoulder snowboarding. Couldn't really lift, like upper body lifts were like real tough. Like couldn't do anything overhead. Couldn't even do any chest, like anything back. Anything was like really tough. It was just painful, and I was trying to rehab it and whatever. That took a while, and that also led into a back injury, which actually turned out to be more of like a rib injury, but all kind of the same, which scared the crap out of me and hurt a lot and took us time to heal, and I was very cautious with the rehab of that as well. Anyway, safe to say, I did not reach my goal last year, and I really wasn't even close, but because, you know, there's a huge wrench thrown into the situation. I basically didn't train for like 8.5 months, where I was just spent injured / rehabbing, and like I was still working out and still exercising and still, you know, keeping up with a lot of stuff. But to say that I was like really training was rough. Now, could I have dieted a lot harder during that time? Like I definitely could have, but I didn't let go. I just like didn't really dial it in because I was like, well, I'm not really training anyways. Like I want to do all this all together. It's easier to kind of go all in rather than just being like super on point with nutrition and like just rehabbing training. It just feels so boring. So anyways, the plan for next year is to get to that. And I knock on wood now, like I'm healthy, no injuries, nothing going on. There's always little, you know, things that are tight and little nicks and stuff like that, because that's just how my body is, and I have to continue to get better at taking care of that and anticipating that and all that kind of stuff. But that's just, you know, that's my life. I hope that that's not the same for you. This is just the way that my body is, and my injury history through sport and through everything else. Like I never hurt myself in the gym. I just hurt myself doing other stuff. So anyways, assuming all that goes well, my goal will be, you know, prepping for the wedding. Now I've got 13 months, so it's quite a bit of time. I don't have to do like a 6-week push for whatever. Like there will be periods of the year where it's going to be a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more relaxed based on, you know, things, social stuff and life things that are happening. But it will all be going towards that. So I'm going to try and get to my leanest, biggest, and strongest ever for that time. And there will be a nice long lead up into that. So the beginning phase will be getting really lean, not as lean as I'm going to get at the end, but it'll get really lean, then add some muscle, and then get lean, and then get like dialed lean. So that will be the kind of 3 phases of the goals setting there. A thing to think about in regards to goal setting is be very realistic about the time frame. Be very realistic about your actual capability, and understand what it takes to accomplish the goals that you are setting for yourself. Those are the biggest 3 things that I can say. You can't set a goal to lose 20 pounds in the next month and say that you're going to go to the gym, you know, 7 days a week and be 100% perfect with your diet, and then not be able to follow through on that, because you're setting yourself up for disappointment and like massively dropping on your expectations, which is just really not good for you. It's not that goal would be extremely ambitious, but it's not that it's impossible. It's just that you have to understand what it takes to actually get that thing. And are you actually willing and able to do it? Like, what if your work is busy? What if, something with your kids or something with something else in your life, your friends, you have parties coming up, you have weddings coming up, you have birthdays, anything like that. If you've got a bunch of stuff going on and you're going to be too tempted to not be able to say no to social obligations or eating good food or drinking or whatever, that makes your life way harder than it would be otherwise. So maybe you just scale back the goal for that short period of time. But the point is, really be very realistic about what you're setting out to achieve, the timeline you're giving yourself to achieve it, and do your best to fully understand what achieving that goal actually requires. For myself, to get like less than 10% body fat and add like maybe 5 to 8 pounds of muscle kind of thing in a year is like, it'll be tough, but it's like very doable. I mean, I have 13 months, so it's very doable. And notice that I said like 5 to 8 pounds of muscle. I didn't say like 20 pounds of muscle. Unless you're very new to training, which of course I'm not, unless you're very new to training or very much coming off like a long period off of training or something like that, or you are using some special substances, like you're not adding 20 pounds of muscle in a year. Like so I lost a little bit of muscle for sure in the first 8 months this year when I wasn't really training that hard, but I've since kind of like put that back on because it kind of just goes away and comes back really fast when it hasn't been gone for that long. But like adding an additional 5 pounds of muscle to my whole frame would be tough. Not tough, just like it's not going to be that easy because it's like new muscle per se. So first focus for me, getting real lean, be super strict with the diet, very dialed with my steps and my training, which I will all be able to control very much in the first quarter of this year. And then I should be able to get to a point, it should take about 4 months, should be able to get to a point where like I'm maybe around 12%. I'd say right now I'm sitting around like 15 to 17%, which is slightly higher than I like to be, but it's fine. Get down to around 12 by like April, then maintain that, put some muscle on all the way up until like November, then just like real dial it in, and then get sub 10% in another 3 months there. So that seems almost reasonable. That's it's ambitious to an extent, but also like I can do it. Because it's also my job and, I know what I'm doing, assuming I don't get any, no new injuries. But again, I don't need to talk about myself that much, and I'm almost like using this as my personal diary, thinking out loud and telling you what I'm thinking in my head that has no relevance to you whatsoever. Your New Year's goals, make them realistic. Make sure you understand what it costs to get them, and make sure that the timeline is reasonable. And if you have trouble figuring out what that is, ask someone like me who understands what it takes to achieve these goals and how some potential factors that you might not think of because this is not your job and not your profession, some potential roadblocks you might face along the way and how to avoid them, how to get around them, how to just completely not have them happen and preemptively get ahead of them. These are some of the things that having a coach really helps with an absolute ton, and it's almost to an underrated degree, where it's like, hey, we've been through this ourselves, and we've been through this vicariously through so many other people who have different lives than me. Like I've been through it with people who have kids, been through it with people who are older, been through it with women, been through it with men, been through it with teenagers, been through it with all different types of people. So I know what they go through, and it's probably somewhat similar to what you're going through. Like we're all different and we're all unique and all have unique challenges, but like we're not all as different as you think we are. So really just take the time to run it by me, run it by someone else, run it by someone who knows, and let us help you out. Let us point you in the right direction to say like, hey, I wouldn't do this, or I think that goal is a good goal, but like you got to give yourself more time, or you're being too aggressive, or you could do it, but this is what it's going to take to do that. Are you willing and able to do that? If yes, proceed. If not, change the goal. All these kind of things. So that's kind of my spiel for New Year's goals as you're heading into that. Hopefully you're listening to this as it comes out, kind of in between that limbo time of year, right between Christmas and New Year's, as you're getting ready to set goals for the New Year's. And if you want me to coach you, of course, I'd love that. Especially if you are getting married in the next year in 2024, or if you're like in a wedding party or attending friends' weddings and stuff like that. I know a lot of people in and around my age group, we're all kind of in that thing now. Do it with me. Do it with me. This is the thing. We're going through the same things. I know the struggles. I know what you're going through. I'm going through them too. And it will be really fun to just kind of get a crew of us going together. Because it's your wedding. You want to look your best. You're spending so much money, and I didn't even get into it in this episode, but the next episode that's coming out, which I recorded yesterday, I have a little rant about the wedding industry, and it is. I won't give too much because I don't want to get myself all fired up right now, but it's a wild place. And I don't want to make fun of it too much either because I kind of want a piece of that, but that's what we're trying to do here. So if you're getting married, know someone's getting married or involved in weddings in any way in the next year, and you want to get in shape for that, hit me up. Let's get to work. Let's do it. Let's help you look your best, feel your best, and be your best overall in this next coming year. Thank you very much for listening. Again, 2023 has been an amazing year for the podcast and for a lot of other things. So I very much appreciate you being here, continuing to be here, and always supporting and helping out and just listening and learning and growing with me here. If you haven't left a review or share this with a friend, please do so. I appreciate it immensely. And that's that. Wishing you the best. Merry Christmas. This will be after Christmas, but Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. Happy New Year. All the best to you and your family and your loved ones. Go outside. Be a good person. See you next time.